I do think it helps a lot because I don't know, for me, like in my perspective and leadership, like I think there's going to be so many leaders on a team in different ways. And for me, I've just found a specific way. And I don't always, I think Anson thinks I like think about it more than I do, like to specifically speak to each person, but I really don't. Like I just have found a way to just, for me, I think like being positive and just making sure that people around me feel comfortable and feel like they're able to get their job done has been the way that I've gone about leadership. And, you know, so not everyone responds to it, but I do think the vast majority like want to feel good. They want to feel trusted by their teammates. And that's like kind of the route I've gone.
Welcome back to the pod. We had you on for a short little snippet, but now we get to share your story, and I'm so excited. Current Racing Lousiville stallion, as I like to say, or you guys are I don't think you have a mascot yet. A UNC Tar Heel. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you're in preseason right now, so thanks for, taking the time to chit chat with us. We are so lucky to have you. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing good. Yeah. How about you guys?
Just coaching, just loving
along
the world with my glass of wine. I mean, I feel like now that I'm a professional, I feel like every pod I'm drinking, which is probably, but I'm like, I get home and I'm like, I can have a glass of wine. Because
that's the enjoyment. You got to enjoy that when you're retired, Joe. So that one I'm going to encourage.
There's nothing like a glass of red wine. T, do you like red wine?
Honestly, I haven't really had it before, so I can't really get.
Okay.
That's white. To be fair, you got to get the right stuff because people they get the bad stuff and they don't want to drink it again. So they get why. That's real bad.
Tina has actually, I think, made me a wine snob.
You got to be. Trust me, you got to be as you get older. Like, I mean, wine snob, you don't need to spend like $100, but you need to spend like $25. Yeah. Between like the 20 and 45 range, I think it's a very good range. And you can find some quality wine.
Yeah.
But it's lost on, like it's like those days in college where you buy like the Mac, like those like $7 and you feel like crap the next morning because you're like, I just drank $7 wine. So,
and that would be why you feel like dog crap.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 1, and I'm super excited to hear your answer for this because I'm just excited. So I wrote it a lot. It's funny because my questions are like really long because I have to like write them out and Tina like already has them in her head. So here's my long question. So while you were at UNC, you scored hat tricks when I was there as a center forward. You shut down the attack as a center back, and then you just made your way to the center of the park. And you adjusted flawlessly, at least from the outside, it seemed. For all those people who are listening, who may be kind of thrown into all different positions and asked to do different roles and responsibilities, one, kind of talk about the difficulties of being so versatile, as well as the perks. And then how did you handle all that?
Okay.
Joe likes to throw it all in there.
I do. I ask all my questions, A, B, C, and answer.
Okay, here we go. Well, I feel like I'm glad you thought it looked flawless from the outside because sometimes I was like, oh my gosh, like they were like huge jumps sometimes. Like going from center forward to center back was like kind of like it was a little tough sometimes because like the mentality is like different. And then I think going to center mid was like the hardest for me at first because it was like so 360 and like both like center forward and center back were just like you have like what's in front of you. And I think that was like the toughest part for me. But I mean, I think Anson said this like a lot of times, I'm sure when you were there as well, but like being versatile is such a good attribute to have. And like honestly, like when they tell you probably a lot of the times like, oh, you're just going to play this random position or you're going to go here and that's not your normal position, like in your head you're like, oh god, like I don't think I can do that. But I think it's like a good thing that a coach is like, oh well, we want you on the field, so we have someone that can play that position, so let's put you in this position. So like that's kind of how I took it. I mean, like whatever way I could get on the field was what I was going to do. So whenever they just told me to go into a different position, I was like, all right, fair enough. Just maybe give me a little guidance and I'll do what I can.
Yeah.
I will say, just like being somebody that's, obviously, I had to rep a little bit of Virginia today, keep it balanced here. We got a lot of tar. We got a lot of Tar Heel in the room, which I love, but it's a lot. I got to balance it out here. But like thinking about like, the type of players that Anson, typically recruits, as well as kind of the systems he runs. I will say, like, the transition into professional is, I don't want to say it probably seems easier, but I feel like so many of you are so versatile. And as we know, even with the emergence of more teams, like saturation is like a big thing in the league. It's a big reason why I went overseas. Like, I just saw that there was more opportunity. Like the league, we had the 6 teams and there was like no growth. And, there's like national team starters in every position. And as a defender, especially, right? Like, you're not taking your center backs really out. You're not really taking your outside backs out. And so a lot of girls that have been able to convert to a forward or play multiple positions, it's like, you always want to start, but any way you can get minutes I feel like is so important. And so the ability of so many girls on North Carolina who've like completely adjusted, like Crystal Dunn, I'm from Albertson in New York. I mean, she was always an attacking player. And then like all of a sudden he's like converting her into an outside back. And it's really incredible because if you know the game, it's just, they're so vastly different. So I feel like for you, especially, like, they're so lucky to have you on the team because, at any moment injuries happen, they really can plug and play you, where a lot of girls just don't have that versatility, which I think is great.
I appreciate that.
So I guess where would you say, like, when you throughout your career though, like, was it Anson just being like, Tay, we're putting you here? Like, how did that kind of go about?
I think so. Originally, when I was committed, I was playing center back for like the U17s or whatever, and that was kind of where I was, I guess, like seen as like as a player. And in club, I was a forward the whole time, but I feel like a lot of people in general, like the better players were just forwards more often. And so I was originally going in as a center back, but then like when I was playing, like as I started playing forward more like in club, Damon was there a lot. And so, oh, do you want to play forward? Like, I think you could. Yeah. And then I ended up playing forward for a little bit my freshman year, and then people got hurt. So then I ended up playing center back. And then the next year they tried me at forward, and we just had so many forwards that they ended up moving me to the 6. Yeah. Yeah. And I like think for me, like at first when they did that, like I honestly was like a little frustrated because like I felt like I could be good at a position, like really good at it. I was like, okay, like I'm good at it, but like I'm not doing everything like the way I want to all the time. Yeah. And like I would kind of get the hang of something. It's like, oh, you're done. You're going to the next position. And so like that's where I think it was like a little tough for me. But I mean, like you're saying, like whatever position you're playing, it's soccer. Like if you know the game and you know how to play, like after doing it for a little while, you'll figure it out. You'll find ways to like what you're good at in those positions, like the way for you to play that position in the most effective way. And I think looking back on it now, I'm really thankful that Anson put me through that, able to do that, because now I feel comfortable. Like if someone comes up to me and is like, hey, can we put you here? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, just let me know how you want me to play and I'll do what I can.
Yeah. I think that's awesome too, because like my first start in the NWSL was actually at center back. Yeah. I never played center back, but it's like, you have to be ready because you never know, like whatever door opens, you got to be ready to like jump through that door because you don't know if it's going to close or if it's going to stay open. Like you got to be ready. So I think like I was obviously with you your freshman year. I saw you go as a, center forward, score a hat trick against South Florida. And then by the end of the year, you're playing center back. So I think it's just a testament to like you as a soccer player and a soccer brain, that I think is really special. And I think like I tell like all the college girls that I coach, it's like you learn so much like between the 18 and like 23 range. So everything that like you learned at UNC, like I know you're freaking taking it to the pros right now. Like, and you feel more settled when you take that next step. Is that kind of correct or no?
Oh, for sure. Like, I feel like for me, obviously it's always a change going from any level to the next.
Yeah.
But like I felt confident in like what I can, and like I knew that like I would be able to get to that level maybe in a quicker way or in a more comfortable way from what I learned at UNC in my place. And I'm sure there's a lot of other places like that as well. But like from my experience at UNC, like that is really how I felt coming into this league. And like, you're so right. Like it's not easy to get on the field in NWSL, you know? So like,
and it's not easy to get on the field at UNC either.
Like, okay, like I'll do like,
yeah.
So.
That's awesome.
I'd be curious, like, you know, considering how versatile and kind of your, I mean, let's be real. There's very few players that have like gone from playing a center back to a forward to a 6. I mean, there's definitely a lot of the conversions happening, but that's like quite literally all over the map. Not shocking, but I think like you can say you sit in a small group in terms of players that have done that. Yeah. I'd be curious though, like if you think, like to your point, right? If there's just certain positions you could still be good at, but you're like, this is just not meant for me. Like I'll do it if for the team, but like, this is not my best spot. Did any of that you think help though? Like in terms of you, like as an overall player? Cause I always feel like if I have an opportunity to play in all these positions, I would think that you have a better vision of the field because you kind of know what to expect. So it's like, has that assisted you in any way in terms of like, you feel like your soccer knowledge maybe is better. You kind of know your positioning better because you really have been in every situation really that's you can do on, you know, the field of play.
For sure. I think it did help me a lot. Cause like, especially like from 6 to center back, like I feel like when I go into center back now, I know exactly like what my midfielders are feeling and like what they want and like positions they want to be in and like when they don't want it, you know what I mean? Or like, when I go into the 6, like I know that like I need to give my center back options because if they don't, like it's like the worst feeling. So I definitely feel like it's helped me be more like, this is a weird word for it, but like empathetic for like the other players on the field, what they need, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I definitely think.
Yeah. I mean, wow. I that's amazing. I can't believe you played like a 6 box to box and then and that forward, center forward. I mean, that's awesome. But so in knowing that and doing that at the collegiate level, you know, in your opinion, what has been, you know, I know you said that you feel like coming out of UNC, you were very prepared, but what's been the greatest difference or change taking that step into the NWSL? Do you feel like it's somewhat apples to apples to how it went at UNC, or do you feel like it was a big gap and kind of a big transition in terms of going right out of college in?
I didn't think it was like the biggest gap. I think where I saw the most change was like, I just think the quality of everyone all around was really, really good. And I think that's where like I biggest, and I thought honestly, like to me, in my perspective, it was just like more fun. Yeah. Like the way you could play with everyone was a little bit different. Yep. Which I think is really cool.
Anson, like I think especially with like very cerebral players, Anson, when I was coming along, he'd be like, Joe, I'm telling you right now, like you're having fun here, but like you're gonna actually, it's probably going to be easier when you play professionally. And like for someone like you can see different things. Like when we play together, like I knew you saw what I saw. So like you were in the spot that I wanted you to be in. So when we played together, it worked.
Yeah.
So it was like lots of yous around that like
a bunch of people who can execute what you're thinking, you know?
Yes, exactly. And that's exciting.
Okay, I got to jump in because I just have to ask, because when I think about transition, we've talked about it before in the podcast, but you know, the UNC, like the line situation is just so like daunting for other teams to watch. Cause you're just like, you almost feel like you're in like a basketball game. I don't even know if basketball is like relatable, but in a way I feel like it's like out of nowhere, I'm like 70 minutes into the game. I'm dead tired. And like the entire team now is like fresh. Like you're like, I've never seen this happen. And I know Anson's very adamant about it and it's clearly worked. Has that been, because I feel like you have to, and you both could probably answer this, but I feel like once you come into the program, you have to kind of like learn to be good with that, right? Like if you're in the first line, you get your 20 minutes, like in a normal world, I'd be like, why am I coming off the field? But at UNC, you're like, oh, I did good. I did my 20, 25 minutes. I get my rest now, whatever. Was that a big jump? Because I feel like that's totally shifted mindset when you go to play in the NWSL and now they're like, okay, Taylor, you need to play 90 minutes. And like, you've always had this mindset of like max out for 25 or max out for the half or whatever. Was that like, I don't know for either of you, because I just didn't experience that. I think it's interesting to see that jump.
I definitely think it was different for sure, because not only like if you're starting, like you're most likely going to play 90 minutes or 65, 70, but also like, and if you weren't starting at Carolina, you most likely were going to get at least 30 minutes every game. Whereas like if you're not starting, there's a good chance you're not going to get on the field, you know? So I think that's like a shift. Okay, yeah, like I need to make sure I'm in that starting lineup. I need to make sure field, or like I'm doing well enough if I'm not in the starting lineup to be the person they want to put on the field when they need someone.
Yeah.
So I think where it was like a little different for me. But I mean, honestly, like I liked either way. Like I didn't mind at Carolina because I thought, I mean, we won, so it was awesome. Like who doesn't want to win? Like you're like, sure, if this works, it works.
Everything better.
I also think too, like there's also a sense of like, okay, like I know what to expect every single game. Like with our long ass pregame talks, like I know exactly what's happening this game. I know I have 22 and a half minutes and I'm pushing Anson in his ear. Give me 25. I'm pushing 2.5 more minutes. Like give me 25 and you have 25 minutes to 30 minutes to ball out. So it's like, and then if you're a reserve, you know, I'm at least going to get 15 minutes. Hands down. So I think like knowing that, but then being able to like, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this, Taylor, because Anson loves to beat a dead horse with this one, but it's like his rebuttal to that, Tina, is Yael coming off, him pulling Yael off, and she goes, why'd you pull me off? And I don't want to ruin it, but it's like, she's like, I'm not even tired. And he goes, that's the point. Like you're supposed to expand your fitness base so that every single time he pulls you off, you are dog tired. So I think when it translates to the NWSL, you've expanded your platform of understanding, like you never take a play off and you can't in the WSL. So I think that translates pretty easily, but you just have to sustain it for longer.
Have to sustain it for sure. But that's actually such a good point. I didn't even think about it. It is so much. I think you had a lot more like of what to expect at Carolina every game. Whereas like in the NWSL, it's like always changing. You don't always know exactly like what the coach is thinking. Whereas like with Anson, I knew exactly like how he works in those ways and like thinking about certain things, even if you don't agree with it, like, you know what what's going on. Whereas like
and
in the
like gives like a sense of like calm and like relief. I feel like even if you don't agree with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of Anson Dorrance, I'm going to give you a little quote that listen,
this in here.
He at some point, like it's hilarious. If you go back on the website, he reams some people on these quotes. So we know Anson is honest. He is honest. He is not bullshitting.
We had him on. We know Anson is honest.
There was one time we pulled it up. He started doing this and somebody's like, why? I want to be like, why did we let Anson? He roasted some people on it. I think it was our year that he started. And I think you were in my room and we were like, there's no way he said that. You're like, put
it out publicly.
I like writing it down.
Say again.
Say about them.
Yeah. And like, there was no editing involved. So this is real. So he says, Taylor Otto is one of the greatest leaders I've ever coached. She has a field leadership voice that is unique because everyone responds to it. She's a cerebral player. She knows the game. She knows how the game should be played at the highest level. Anson Dorrance. That's awesome. So congrats. That's a big,
that's from the GOAT, man.
That's from the GOAT. That's from the GOAT. And for how honest he is, you can look back at other people's quotes. That's honest. He would have said it if he didn't mean it. Yeah. So I know you kind of touched on it and I'll be curious to see if you can dive a little bit more into it. Do you think, I'm just curious about your response. How does that make you feel to hear that from Anson? Because we don't really hear that straight up all the time. Like that's not something that's praised all the time.
Yeah.
And then 2, you kind of touched on it because you played so many positions and you understand where people should be and how that player in that position is feeling. Do you think that has led to your ability to lead? This is a 2-parter again.
Well, first, I honestly like it does make you feel good. Like Anson's like, he doesn't really give out compliments all that often, like that nice. So yeah, it definitely makes me feel good. And honestly, like I credit a lot of like what I've been able to do and who I am as a person now to Anson and like what he does at Carolina. So I mean, it definitely makes me feel good to think that like he thinks I'm capable of those things and that I've done a good job of those things. So yeah, it definitely makes me feel good. And then in regards to the leadership question, I do think it helps a lot because I don't know, for me, like in my perspective in leadership, like I think there's going to be so many leaders on a team in different ways. And for me, I've just found a specific way. And I don't always, I think Anson thinks I like think about it more than I do, like to specifically speak to each person, but I really don't. Like I just have found a way to just, for me, I think like being positive and just making sure the people around me feel comfortable and feel like they're able to get their job done has been the way that I've gone about leadership. And, so not everyone responds to it, but I do think the vast majority like want to feel good. They want to feel trusted by their teammates. And that's like kind of the route I've gone. And I mean, it's worked out for me and that's just my style, but I know other people have different styles. So
I feel like when I think about leadership, it's always, it sounds as though obviously I haven't played with you, but just hearing it from Joe and knowing what people say about you, I feel like you're very authentic. And I think that's part of being a great leader as well, is right. You don't want to be like forcing anything. And I think like to your point, you have a style and you stick to it and it's clearly it works. And we recently had Veronica Latsko on from Old Rain and she kind of had that like same approach where it was like, kind of going about it in a way where like she built stability and confidence in people around her. She felt like that was something that helped on the field. And it's funny you guys are mentioning Anson and kind of his honesty, sometimes brutal, but honesty. You know what I again, like just knowing UNC better now because of Joe, what I think is interesting is like, I wonder, even though some of it is kind of hard to hear, I feel like I've seen from UNC girls that like that level of honesty has been almost beneficial to your performance because so many times, especially when you're young, I just remember so many times where I'm like in my head, I'm like assuming what a coach is thinking about me, or I'm assuming what they're thinking about this. And like Anson may say some stuff to you that like, it's going to be hard to hear, but like to know where you stand, I think that actually in ways, whether it's easy or hard, can benefit you from a performance standpoint. And I wonder like in the NWSL now, and I know you're early in it, you have a new coach here, but is that something that you have to like, in terms of finding your confidence and feeling stable, is that something you seek from your teammates? Do you try to have that transparency with your coach? How do you kind of develop that in the NWSL, you think?
Yeah.
For you at least?
Honestly, like that's actually funny you say that because at Carolina at first, like honestly, before I got to Carolina, I think I was very like similar in that way. Like someone would say I did something wrong or someone would criticize me and I would be like, oh my God, like, am I not doing well? Like, am I not doing good enough? Am I not going to play here? Like, that's your immediate thought. Like, if someone just like, even if it's not in like an aggressive way, which Anson could be sometimes, but like now that I've moved on from Carolina, I'm like, oh my God, like, I feel like all I want is for you to tell me what I'm doing wrong. Like, so fix it. Like, why aren't you telling me what you want? And like, cause at Carolina, you just get so used to it. Like Anson's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing that? You need to do this. If you can't do this, you can't play, and it's so like cut and dry. Whereas like in the NWSL, it's not always like that with the coaches. They don't always communicate as much, or you can't go into their office like all the time and be like, hey, like, let's sit here for an hour and watch film. And not because they don't want to, but they just have other things they have to do. So they can't always allot that time to you. And I think that's something that's been like a little bit of a learning curve to me, is I've kind of had to like find my way through it and like figure out what I'm doing wrong and what they want myself and fix that. And
so
like what
I'm going to bomb drop a little here and I'm going to get your perspectives on this, because I think I have a theory on this. So this is my opinion, but, and not like any specific person comes to mind in terms of a coach, but do you guys ever think that that's like, I feel like when we talked to Anson, he was like, like his approach was general, right? A man, a woman, anyone he's coaching, he's going to approach them the same.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, if I'm being honest, I think we get that because we're women. Like, I don't mean to like make it like that, but sometimes I'm like, I feel like coaches, they anticipate or they assume in ways like mentally, like maybe we're too fragile to hear the truth. And in ways it almost like makes, I don't know if you feel that way, Joe, like in terms of how you're approaching coaching, but like, I feel like there's so many times where I'm like, God, could you have just told me that like my right foot was shit for 3 months and I needed to like do long balls every day for like, no one was saying that. It was like skirting around the issue. Yeah. And instead of me actually improving it, you know,
I think what Anson does flawlessly, and Tay, you can back me up, is he does it with humor.
He really does.
He'll roast, he'll be like, you're right. Like pretty much if you take away his humor, he'll pretty much say like, your right foot is absolutely god awful. You need to work on it.
Yeah.
But he's a master of words, but he adds humor to it. So everybody laughs, but everybody knows, but then you get it. And you're like, okay. So it doesn't like feel like anything he says, I feel like is never malicious. But it could be taken.
No, I think it's consideration and care. If he was not invested in your growth, he wouldn't criticize you. He would just uplift you all the time. But he cares about your how you excel and what your goals are. I feel like so many of you guys create goals. If you're telling him you want to be in the NWSL, he's going to tell you what it takes to get there.
Oh yeah.
And it's up
to
you to.
He's like, do you want me to coach you? Like you're swimming. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm following you around and telling you you're not doing good enough. I'm like, okay, yeah, I want it.
Follow you around. Like he'll have like a list of like 6 or 7 people that like he's probably had a conversation with that are like, this is what I want to do. And you'll be in a passing pattern and he's like, take off a point for her. She didn't check her shoulder. And you're like, it's like, I swear I checked my shoulder.
Yeah. Not far enough. You didn't check it far enough.
Not well enough. Like, okay.
Gosh. Well, you know, you've already exceeded in so many ways. You did amazing at UNC, but we also know that you've been through a lot, especially with injury, despite being so young as a player. You know, talk about kind of the journey with that. Like you obviously have been a lifer with youth national teams. You've always been exceeding at the highest level, but like anything, injuries are sometimes just unavoidable. Can you point to a moment in your young career that you think, you know, was kind of a turning point for you, in the sense of like, first, like when things, you could kind of see a vision for yourself in terms of like, okay, I have a future in this sport. I can become a professional. And then also just like, did you learn anything, you know, about yourself in the midst of having to overcome, you know, injury? It's just a tough thing to go through, just bearing where you were at.
Yeah. I think I can't really think of like an exact moment where I was like, oh, like I think I could have a future in this. Cause like, I don't know. I think a lot of us are just kind of like,
kind of happens.
Yeah. Like this is what I want to do. And I'm going to keep doing it until it's like, okay, well, this might not happen. And like, luckily it ended up working out for me. But I do remember like after I tore my ACL the first time, Sean Nahas was my coach. And I like came to training and I had just had surgery and I was like 13 or 14 at the time. Like I tore my ACL my first time, like really young. And I was like so emotional. Like every time they would say something to me, I would cry. You can ask Damon, like he always makes fun of me for it. But like I like went to training and I was just sitting there watching and he like pulled me over and I just started bawling and I was like, it's just so hard for me to watch. And he was just like, okay, like I get it, but like you're being dramatic. Like you need to like he literally had no sympathy at the time. He was like, you need to pull it together. You need to go in there and you need to do your work every day and you'll be back out here in 6 or 7 months. You want to get with the 17. So if you're either going to have this attitude and you're going to sulk or you're going to go in there and you're going to get it done and you're going to be back on the field doing what you're doing. And I think like in that moment was when I kind of had a different like view on injuries. It was kind of like, okay, like you got injured. This is what you do. You're going to get back on the field. And like, ever since then, every time I've gotten injured, it's never been like, oh, I can't play anymore. Like, I'm not going to be able to play anymore. I'm not going to get back on the field. I'm not going to be where I was. It's just like, okay, here we go again. What do I need to do? How am I going to fix it? We're back on the field. And I think that little conversation, like as little as it was, it really shifted like my perspective on it.
Well, I can like definitely back you up on that because like I remember, and I don't think I've ever like actually thanked you in person because of what a whirlwind it was, but like after my second one, like I distinctly remember like you and my mom and me sitting on my bed and like having a straight up conversation of just like, I'm not going to let this define me. This, literally, it was the same conversation that you just had. This is what you're going to do. This, we're going to get back out, and this is a mild setback, but like, this is what we're going to do. And like, for you to be 17, 18 at the time, and me being a 5th-year senior, like, I think that then also goes back to like your empathetic leadership ability to be able to relate to, we were at the time, like, are we like 4 years apart? I think we're 4 years apart, like 4 years apart, but like you to be so young, but be so empathetic at a time where like you legit saw me at my worst, like legit saw me at my worst. But the ability to connect with me at that moment was massive. And like, it had a big impact on like the shift of like my mindset into my second surgery. So it doesn't surprise me that that's like your take on how to deal with injuries, because you consult, but what is that going to do?
That brings up a question of mine. So, going through a long-term injury, I think what people don't like sometimes even recognize in the moment is like something's taken away from you that truly is at the core of your everyday. Every single day you're touching the ball, every single day you're training, you're doing something active. And if it's a significant enough injury, that's completely taken away. You could be on crutches, not moving. I'm always curious, like, because that's such a drastic and quick kind of like something's removed from your life, did you find, again, head down, like you said, getting back to being recovered, getting back to the game, but did you find anything else that like, I don't want to say distracted you, but that you put your mind towards or focused on the off times that maybe you weren't doing PT or you weren't getting back in terms of training? What was like an outlet for you, since kind of soccer at that point in time was not an option?
Honestly, I don't really know. Like, I feel like I just was like so focused on like my recovery that I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing today. And it's like, okay, I have like 3 weeks and I get to do this. But I also like, honestly, I got really lucky with like the group of people I was around every time I got injured. Like, I would just go and like people would always be so like kind and like considerate about it. And like, honestly, after that conversation I had with Sean, I was like excited to be at the games, excited to watch the games, like excited to cheer my team on. And like, I think that's almost kind of where I also learned, like, you need to be happy, like, for people, like when they're having their success, even when you're not having yours, because like your time's going to come and you want that from other people. And I think that's like a big thing that like I really tried to do when I was injured, was make sure that I was there for the people that were on the field and was there to cheer them on or there to talk to them and see things that they weren't seeing or whatever that is. And I think that's where I kind of shifted what I was like, my role was at the time and like what I focused on.
To be so young and to be so like able to have like maturity level to be able to take that and not let it tear you down, but to actually propel you forward, I think just speaks to like, once again, like your maturity, because it felt like you're at UNC 4 years before you stepped on foot on the field. But you redshirted and then redshirted again. Were you double redshirt?
No, I wasn't one. I only once, but then I had like my COVID year, but I didn't take it, but I took a half a year because I came early as well. That's
what I'm thinking of. So you came early, then you redshirted. So you weren't on the field for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
I was like, get this girl a jersey and like, can we put her on the freaking field?
I was just saying year and a half. But
yeah.
I mean, honestly, like the things I'm saying, like it's obviously like I'm glad it happened, but like it wasn't easy. Like there was times obviously like where I wasn't like the happiest or like the most supportive, but I just like, those are the things that like I really did try to focus on. And like eventually now I'm like, those are things that I feel like I'm more so like ingrained in who I am. Whereas like at the time then it probably wasn't as perfect and it wasn't as consistent, so.
I think that's awesome. I love everything you said about that, because it's so wise. And I feel like so many people do need to like hear that. So kind of going into this season, you're coming back healthy, your second year.
Knock on wood.
Yep, always knock on wood. Knock on wood.
Knock on brick.
What are your expectations for yourself? What are your expectations for the club? You got some new signings. How are you feeling? How's Racing Louisville feeling in Taylor Otto?
Honestly, I think we're feeling good. Like the ending of last year was really good for us. I mean, the beginning of the year, the middle of the year was like a very interesting experience for a lot of us, I think, and didn't really go exactly how we wanted it to. I ended up having another knee surgery last year, which was like not obviously what I wanted, but I was able to get back on the field at the end, which was awesome. The team like really like bonded at the end, got a good culture. We got a new coach who was like really awesome. And right now he's our assistant. And I think he does a really good job of like communicating with the players, which is really cool. But this year is like, I think it'll be good. We have a lot of really great players. We're young, but like, again, really good young players. The signings we got are awesome. So I don't know. I'm excited. I think we'll do well. It's going to take some time to implement the things that the new coach wants to do, but I'm excited. And I think honestly, like any other club, their expectations are to win and to do well, regardless of us being young and it being a new year. So, yeah.
Do you feel like college, I feel like it's like a 3-month sprint. Like, especially if you're like a UNC, right? You typically win and you play deep into the tournament. We've talked about this a little bit, but like the NWSL season is like, I mean, it's like so long, like it's just so long, which is why ruts can feel endless, because it's like, if you have a bad month, it just feels like it's never ending. How has that experience been in terms of like has your mindset changed at all, where, do you feel like it's harder to get over games because there is more gaps? It's not as confined, or do you feel like you kind of have to just like move on because it is so long? Like, what's your experience been sort of with that scheduling difference?
Honestly, I feel like that is like one of the biggest changes from college to NWSL is like you literally, I mean, you're almost always playing. Like beginning of the year to the end of the year, you don't have much time off, and I don't know. I honestly think it's kind of nice. Like you almost get more opportunity. You have to be ready for longer. There's more games you could get into. There's more games you could be playing. Like I do think it's like a good opportunity for a full squad to be used throughout a year, which is very unique to college. Because I think in college, like after like the first few games, they get their starting lineup and they're like, this is kind of what it is, unless someone gets injured. And like, obviously you don't want that to happen, but that's just the reality of it. And I think in the NWSL season, with it being that long, like it gives a lot of players opportunity. It gets you the ability to kind of like get in a rhythm, figure things out, especially with the Challenge Cup. Like I think that really helps as well. So I personally like the longer season, and I don't find it to be more difficult in a way to like get over like a bad game or like things not going well. I kind of think it's easier to like figure things out and like kind of get where you want to go without having to do it so quickly.
Yeah, like the pressure to succeed, like so quick. Like in college, you lose back-to-back games, you could be out of the ACC tournament.
Yeah, you're done. Like you're not going to get in the tournament.
There's no really margin for tweaking or adjusting, or it's really like, if there's a hole, we're plugging it as quick as we can and we're rolling with it. And so you can truly build throughout the season with momentum and getting in and out of ruts. Like in college, that's hard, especially now that I'm a college coach. I'm like trying to like manage and deal with such a short season. It's so hard. It's hard.
Yeah, it really is hard. And that's actually funny. Like the other day we were talking, like, I mean, if I would have had that injury that I had last year during a college season, like I probably
you're done.
Yeah.
And like, so like for me, like that was really nice for me to be able to like, okay, like I played a little bit and then I got injured, which like we didn't want to happen, but like I was able to like get back on the field and like have a few solid games. And like, honestly, like for me, it was awesome. I was like, oh, I can play in this league. Like I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's another nice thing about it.
So you think, second year coming in, is the mindset still kind of like you're the new kids on the block, or are you guys going for it this year?
I definitely think we're going to go for it for sure. It's we're so young still. Like right now I'm considered like one of the older players, and it's like,
I was about to say, you're probably a veteran at this point.
you guys think
better. And she's like 24. Not even, I'm not even sure if you're 24, but it's, that's crazy. Well, hopefully, I mean, you sometimes you keep your jets on all year.
Yeah.
I love
awesome.
Well, team, awesome. Thank you. I'm so happy we were able to get your full story out here. I know we touched on you a little bit early. Was it pre-challenge? It was during the Challenge Cup, I think. I don't know.
It was a little bit before. Yeah.
Long time ago. And your story deserves to be shared. You're such an incredible human being at such a young age. And just thanks so much for hopping on. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'm glad I could do this with you guys, and thank you for having me.